He wanted me to be his daughter. This is long, so hang in there with me. This happened when I was 13 years old. I am female and much older now. I lived in a quiet, safe neighborhood with one sketchy block before mine. It was a corner that had 4 bars, one on each of the corners. My parents were strict. They were the kind that had to not only meet my friends, but actually to meet my friends' parents as well. They were those kind of parents. The year I turned 13, I was old enough to go to our community teen hangout. I don't want to give the name, as it might give away my location. You paid $3 to get in. It was open only on Friday nights, and the hours were from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. I lived about a quarter mile from the center, and it was located in town. My path was well lit until I got the last 4 blocks that included those bars. I was allowed to walk and meet my best friend halfway. She lived closer than I did to the center because of the area being safe. One night, after the center closed, I was walking my usual route when I noticed a guy pacing me on the other side of the street. I had already left my friend, and I had 6 more blocks to go. I wasn't sure he was following me, so I decided to try and play a game. I would randomly stop and look at something in a store window, using the glass to see if he stopped too, and he did. I tried this a few more times, and every time I did so, he stopped with me. I was approaching the 4 bars, and there were a lot of motorcycles and people out next to their bikes, drinking and just generally being very loud. I wasn't apprehensive because these guys never bothered me, and I'd been walking this way for 3 weeks without any problems from them. The guy kept up with me until we reached the bars. Then I noticed him turn around. I relaxed and hightailed it home, thinking I was going to be in trouble for being later than usual. I didn't tell my mom and dad what happened because I reasoned nothing happened and it was just my overactive imagination, right? Cue the next Friday with a repeat of the previous Friday. I did tell my friend, who said she could get her mom to drive me home, and I told her no because I didn't want to lose privileges, and he didn't actually do anything. Yet. I should also mention that around this time, I was stopped one evening by the bikers at the bar. A woman asked me why I was coming home so late by myself. She was nice, and I explained what I was doing to her. After that, they would always wave but never stop me again. The next Friday, the same guy crossed the street. I froze for the first time I could see him. He did not seem too scary. He was an older man, and he was about 6 feet tall, not real heavy, and had dark hair and blue eyes. I started to back away because it felt weird that he actually crossed the street. I was just about to go to the bar where the bikers were. I started to run, and he chased after me, saying, "I just want you to be my daughter." I was starting to cry. I was so scared, and he was gaining on me fast. What happened next is kind of a blur. I remember yelling, stay away from me at this point. I was right next to the bar. I was just screaming. I felt someone grab me and heard men yelling. I was trying to get out of the grasp of whoever had me when I heard a familiar voice say, "Stop, I have you." I froze. I looked up and collapsed into a ball of tears. The other bikers had the guy, and someone called the police. My parents picked me up, and I thought I was in so much trouble with them, but they just hugged me and said it would be okay. I don't know what happened to the guy, and my parents stopped me from going to the center for a while. I did get a chance to thank the people that helped me, and I hope that guy gets help so he won't try to kidnap someone else for a daughter. Man tried to kidnap me as a child. This is my first post on here, so I apologize for any errors. This happened a while ago. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was probably around 7 or 8. I'm a female, and I grew up in a very small town on the East Coast. It's very suburban, and nothing bad ever really happens there. My mom was always a little on the overprotective side, so any vigilance I had, more than that and not out of necessity, meaning I was never really looking for dangerous situations. I lived in a cul-de-sac that had a lot of other kids on the block, so I usually had someone to play with. So I remember it striking me as odd on this particular day when I was the only one outside in my whole neighborhood. Still not sure why that was to this day, but I was playing on my driveway completely alone, my parents and brother inside my house, probably with a jump rope or something. A car drove up to the street and stopped me at the end of my driveway with an adult male in the driver's seat. I don't remember at all what he looked like, but I remember exactly the color of his car, a beige/khaki color. He rolled down the window and told me he was lost and in need of directions. Could I come over to his car and help him look at his map? Like I said, the town was small, so strangers stopping to ask for directions was not an uncommon occurrence at all. I didn't feel any sense of malice whatsoever. The only thing that stopped me from skipping over to help was the fact that I had a bad sense of direction. I cheerfully told him that, sorry, but my sense of direction was pretty terrible, and I wouldn't be much help. He insisted. Surely it's not that bad. Why don't you just come over here and look at my map? I shook my head politely and replied, even joked, I think. No, really, I'm useless when it comes to navigating. But my mom is really great at that stuff. I'll go get her. So I ran inside and found my mom, told her there was someone outside asking for directions. She told me she'll be out soon. She followed me back outside, but of course, he was gone. I don't remember finding that odd, but I do remember my mom seeming really upset all of a sudden and telling me that I had to play inside for the rest of the day. Why was that? I think what I actually find more disturbing than the fact that this man was trying to kidnap me, I guess he was just driving around looking for an unattended child. Either that or he's been watching the neighborhood and knew that there were a lot of kids around, is the fact that I didn't get any kind of bad feeling at all. From what I've read of other people's experiences on this website and on other forums, it seems like 90 or 99% of the reports had some kind of bad sinking feeling in their stomach when they ran into that person, but I didn't have that at all, and that's way more disturbing. I've always been pretty naive and trusting, I guess, but it still wigs me out to think that the only thing that kept me from being kidnapped that day wasn't my savvy, street smart self, but just the fact that I can't read a damn map. Anyways, khaki car guy, let's not meet. A leprechaun impersonator almost kidnapped us. This all happened a bit of a long time ago, so please bear with me, as this is a completely true story that I verified with my family over the holiday. Granted, it's something we'd all like to forget, but here it is all the same. I'm 19 now and in college, but I originally grew up in a small town in New England. The area is basically in the middle of a few game refuges that's surrounded by farms, fields, forests, and mountains as far as the eye can see. It's beautiful in the fall, but can be annoyingly creepy at night. Honestly, there is a local legend about a Blair Witch cabin on a trail near my house that is legitimately a Pokestop, but I digress. This all may seem irrelevant, but what you need to understand is that crime wasn't something that normally happened at all. There was the occasional car robbery, but they would usually just turn themselves in when they figured out that someone knew another person whose car they had robbed, and they would get in more trouble with their mother than the authorities if they didn't turn themselves in. Yeah, it's that kind of a town. We all felt safe, generally. My mom was always overly cautious, though. She would always walk my brother, sister, and myself down to the end of the street while we waited for the bus to pick us up for school. We didn't mind it too much, as we've always lived on a street that literally had no other kids. It was and still is just all older people. It was like having about 9 extra grandparents who would often give us sweets and other goodies. That being said, we didn't really play with any other kids on the regular. We normally just read books and entertained ourselves, so you can understand that we liked having our mother to talk to while we waited for the bus. If I got the year right, my brother was about 9 at the time, my sister 5, and myself 7. So we were young, but not incredibly so. Not to sound completely narcissistic, but we basically looked like the perfect set of children. My brother and I looked like twins, all smiles and both of our 2 front teeth missing. And my sister was the perfect picture of rosy cheeks and cherry sundresses. She would actually be stopped occasionally on vacation to take pictures with Japanese tourists who thought she was a little toddler model. One day, on our way out to the bus, we opened the side door of our house and saw a small pile of pennies on the doormat. We were thrilled, as we thought the leprechaun had come back to give us more coins. A family friend had shared one of their family traditions with us just the previous week. If you leave a potato on your doorstep on the eve of St. Patrick's Day, then a leprechaun will leave you a stack of coins in exchange for his favorite meal. The whole idea of getting money, even a measly 27 cents, was exciting for us, and we were all happy to take the coins. Our mother didn't see a problem with it, and assumed that our dad had left them there before he left for work early that morning. No one really suspected anything at the time. Naturally, though, we all know that's total bullshit, especially since it's in this subreddit. For the next couple of weeks, the piles kept showing up on our doorstep and slowly began to trail down the driveway, stopping at the end for a few days before trailing down the streets to where our bus usually stops every morning. At this point, my parents began to freak out, and rightly so. After discovering that my dad hadn't left a pile of coins, they began to ask the sweet elderly neighbors whether or not they left us the coins. Every single one of them said no. We stopped taking the coins after that. The pile of coins at the end of the street grew in size over the next few weeks. This had been going on for a month or so at this point. The coins were always there, and they were clearly meant for us, but no one was in sight. You're probably wondering why my parents didn't call the police at this point. Well, they didn't want to cause any trouble. My mother's words, not my own. One day, however, they did end up having to call. We were all standing at the end of the road besides the ominous pile of coins when a gray sedan pulled up from behind the tree line and parked across the road from our street. We would have thought this was normal, as many people park there to take hikes, but the car didn't have any plates. The only way this vehicle could have been more nondescriptive would have been if it was painted camouflage. The clincher for us was the red scarf we saw tied to the car side mirror. It was the same one that we had tied on our mailbox to let the bus driver know if we were sick and wouldn't be coming to school that day. It had been stolen months ago. An investigation took place, and nothing really came of it. But once the police began monitoring the house, the coins stopped coming, and the car never came back. If my mother wasn't as careful with us as she was, we would have been kidnapped faster than you could blink. After talking about it more, we came to the conclusion that he was probably after my baby sister. The the one with the wide eyes and the perfect apple plum cheeks. She's 16 now and can't remember any of this, but it's honestly terrifying to think about how she, my little sister, could have been gone forever. The part that scares me the most about this is that this guy wasn't your usual kidnapper. He was patient. He waited for months and months to try and get his hands on us. He watched our house. He watched our family for months, trying to find an opportunity. He watched us walk to the end of the street every morning for the bus. He knew when we were sick. He saw us leave the potato out on our doorstep for the leprechaun, and he knew how to reel us in. The asshole knew everything, and we'll never know how. Soon after, our dad thought it would be safer for us to be trained in self-defense, and although it may sound like I'm making this up, my siblings and I now all have training in Shaolin Kempo, 2 of us sporting 2nd degree black belts. Basically, my tiny sister could throw a grown man over her shoulders at the age of 11, if you could believe it. I don't really want to know where this douchebag is, but don't let any kids fall for the coin trick like we almost did. So, creepy leprechaun impersonator, if you're out there, let's not meet again, for your own sake. The creepy guy who tried to kidnap me when I was 5. First of all, I am not a native English speaker, so I'm sorry if I make some mistakes. This happened to me in 1992 in Argentina when I was 5. My mom and her best friend had a clothing store in our town. It wasn't really close to our house, but it was pretty close to my school, so I used to spend most of my afternoons there. There was a room in the back of the store with a little stove and a table, so I used to spend the time there drawing, playing with stuff, etc., basically kid stuff. As you can guess, I used to get bored a lot, so I pestered my mom, begging for her to let me cross the street and go to the bakery in front of our store. My mom wouldn't let me go alone unless my brother was there to take me. But one day, maybe because the store was crowded, or maybe because I was almost 6 years old, my mom helped me to cross the street and let me go to the bakery, alone. She said, "I'll be waiting here." When I got into the bakery, which was actually really quite crowded, I tried to act cool while I was looking at all the sweet things I wanted to buy. Honestly, I don't really remember when or how, but suddenly, I was lifted up by a man in his 30s. This man said, "Hey, sweetie, what do you want me to buy?" I felt a pain in my stomach. I wanted him to put me down, but every time I tried to do it, he clenched me against him with more strength. I remember trying to scream, but the voice didn't come out. I was paralyzed because of the fear. He kept talking and pointing sweets while I was trying to get away from his arms. I remembered I looked to the people around me, hoping that someone could notice that I was terrified. On top of that, the bakery's owner wasn't there, so the 2 teenagers working there didn't really recognize me at the moment. Finally, a quiet voice came out from my throat. "Please, sir, put me down." But he didn't care. He kept talking about sweets and about how fun it would be if I played with him at his place, etc. Suddenly, I heard my brother's voice. "Sir, that's my sister, and we don't know you. Put her down now." My brother was 10 at the time. Quickly, I threw myself to him, and everyone at the store looked at the creepy guy, who excused himself by saying, "I thought she was lost. Sorry," or something like that. My brother took me out of the store and told me, "Mom was worried because you didn't come out of the store, and when I arrived, she asked me to go and get you. I won't tell Mom what happened if you promise me not to be such an idiot again." I said yes to all. I never begged to go to the bakery or anywhere else again. The creepiest thing of all is that somehow I kind of knew what was going to happen to me. That was weird, because being a kid and having such overprotective parents, I didn't know a thing about child abuse, but somehow I knew. I told this experience to my mom 2 years ago, and she was shocked and felt guilty. I don't blame her. We lived in a small and quiet town, and she was indeed a responsible parent. It's just that those creeps are ready to attack at the slightest chance they find. So, creepy and highly possible pedophile guy, let's not meet again.